Hey, you're now listening or watching the Halos in the Infield podcast with your hosts Todd Fox and Fernando the Lone Star Halo, brought to you in part by Noble L Works, just outside of Anaheim Stadium and the Pond, or the Honda Center, where you can get drink specials just by mentioning Halos in the Infield. Also brought to you in part by 714 Tickets. 714 Tickets is a place to go to get 10% off of any ticket purchase just by also mentioning HITI, Halos in the Infield. Now enjoy the show. Let me see. Okay. Hey, welcome into a special breaking news edition of Halos in the Infield, the podcast with your host Todd Fox and the other host of the show,
the Lone Star Halo.
There you go, residing from?
I'm in College Station, home of Texas A&M.
There you go. Beautiful Texas A&M. We got one topic tonight and one topic only, but it's going to be talked about in different ways, obviously. There's a lot to get into. It's Ron Washington. Ron Washington is your new Halos manager. There's been a lot of candidates out there, Lone Star, about, anywhere from Erstad, former players, D. Sarcina, Torrey Hunter, but now we have one. And a lot of people were putting their money on Buck Showalter because you saw the stupid name in all the tweets, or the X's, whatever you want to call it, was Artie likes Buck. Artie likes Buck. But what do you think happened?
I don't really know. I was under the camp too that it was going to be Buck Showalter. My guy was Benji Gill. That was my horse in the race. That's the guy I wanted to give him a shot. For whatever reason, though, the organization just doesn't trust him. I do think Benji Gill is going to get a managerial spot. There's like 3 spots left?
Correct.
We got the Padres. Who are the other two? Marlins? Because Showalter's Shoemaker's not going back, right?
No, he didn't opt out yet, so he's technically still there. And I don't think he is now. But they're the San Diego job, the Houston job, and the Ohio job, right? Or Ohio was filled already.
Yeah, Stephen Vogt.
That's right. That was a shocker.
Yeah, that was weird after Terry Francona, but I like Stephen Vogt as a player. I see a good manager out of him. I really do. I think he's going to do good. The big surprise for me was David Ross getting the short end of the stick in Chicago. I don't really think he's done that bad there.
Well, now there's an opening in Milwaukee, which is crazy because, yeah, you're right with David Ross. He kind of brought them back to being a playoff team. And then you turn around and you take Craig Counsell, which a lot of people are like, Craig Counsell, is he that good? Well, he led a Brewers team where most MLB casual fans don't know that many players outside of Yelich and maybe Braun from back in the day, who's not playing no more. But he's done a lot with the little that he's had over there in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I was just more surprised that he went to a division rival.
Correct.
Because Craig Counsell was a Brewer for a very decent chunk of his career as a player.
Correct.
So he kind of hometown guy, kind of stuck around for his hometown team to manage, and now he's going to not only his division rival as a player, but now division rival as a manager. So that's kind of strange. You'd think to yourself, like, well, business is business, but I mean, could you imagine Dusty Baker leaving the Astros to come to the Angels? Like, be kind of weird.
That'd be very weird. Or like back in the day when Tony La Russa was the A's manager, and if he would have came to the Angels, that would have been weird. So
yeah, exactly. So honestly, I think it'll be a good move for Craig Counsell. I think the Brewers might be slowly on their way out. I know a lot of people are talking about they have a decent farm system and they have some potential. Yeah, but I mean, when have the Brewers ever really put it together for a long period of time? The Cubs, just about the same kind of potential right now with some of their youngsters. They seem to be making good signings left and right. The Stroman signings worked out for them. Mm-hmm. Dansby Swanson had a good year.
Which we were thinking he wasn't going to have a good year, but kudos to him. He put it up. Yep. Yeah, the Cubs, just if they hadn't flatlined at the end, they probably most likely would have made the postseason as well.
Probably, yeah. So a lot of potential out of there. But anyway, all that just to go back to the fact that the Angels finally got their guy. They finally got their manager in Ron Washington. Now, a lot of people are talking about the excitement and the potential coaching staff he's going to hire. I mean, it's all just hearsay right now. Chances are, I'm sure not every one of those names is going to come aboard. I mean, Torrey Hunter is a name that's getting thrown around. Well, is it Eric Young Jr.? Is also a name getting thrown around?
Clint Hurdle, which would be a great one, I believe. Clint Hurdle.
He was a bench coach?
Prior, but he was He was with a
No,
pod.
no, no, no. Clint Hurdle. What would he be for us? Was
He
my
would
question.
be the
Sorry.
bench coach. He'd be next in
Okay,
line. He'd have to
and
be.
he was the manager for the Pirates and the Rockies.
Yeah, he had the Rockies in the World Series, and he had the Pirates for about a good 5 years, either in the playoffs or knocking on the door. So I love him as well. Both guys are fiery, and both guys will hold these players accountable and are good with younger players, which is what the Angels are going to be turning themselves into, which is a younger team. Chili Davis, I've been talking about hopefully getting him again. These are hearsay, but if Chili Davis were to come aboard, I'd be fine with that as a hitting instructor. He's an old school guy. Obviously, Torrey Hunter, I don't care if what he is outside of a pitching coach, he's going to do wonders in that clubhouse.
Honestly, pitching coach might be better than what we've had lately.
Yeah, and
at this point, why not?
and speaking of, if you haven't heard, Matt Wise and also Eric Thames are now going to the White Sox, who had the worst pitching staff last year and were one of the worst hitting teams. So let's see how far they go up.
Well, yeah, a lot of Angels fans hate Keenan Middleton, and when Keenan Middleton's coming out to talk about the dysfunction inside of the White Sox organization, that tells you something.
Correct. So. Correct. But first, let me tell you that, or let me ask you this, Fernando. He gets a 2-year deal.
Okay.
And I just got a voice message from Catella Chronicles' own Dominic, and he said that his theory is the Angels are going to go all for it again and try to have a window within these 2 years to win and possibly bring back Ohtani on a shorter term than a long term because of his not being able to pitch for a year and a half. Do you think that, or do you think along the lines of my theory? And I want to hear yours for after mine, but my theory real quick is I believe Ron, no matter who he puts on that staff, he may be, and I'm going to use the term, grooming somebody for that
position.
Oh,
God, I told you not to use that term.
I'm going against you, damn it.
That doesn't mean what you think it does, Todd.
Well, I think he's kind of going to have the next manager in waiting ready to go. He's going to instill the right qualities. That's my opinion. But do you think it's a win now thing or a win?
Okay, so who do you think that potential next manager would be? Because I mean, it's probably not Clint Hurdle. He's been there, done that. Yep. You don't need to quote unquote groom him. Mm-hmm. Chili Davis. I mean, he's not old, but he's obviously getting a little long in the tooth too.
Correct.
You want a guy who's still going to be able to relate to these guys. Obviously, Ron Washington's old. I mean, I told you guys in the group chat that I feel like being a baseball manager is like being a president in this country. Like, if you're not a cough away from kicking the bucket, like nobody wants you. Buck Showalter, Joe Madden, Ron Washington. These guys are so disconnected because they're so old. Mm-hmm. I mean, Ron Washington's what, 71? If 71. I saw. That's pretty old, man. How are you going to connect to a guy like Zach Neto, Logan O'Hoppe? Like, oh, well, let me tell you about when I was in the major leagues. Mm-hmm. And when was Ron Washington last in the majors? The late 80s? When he was like, what, an Astro?
I believe so, yeah. He played a long time ago.
He also hasn't managed a team in a couple years. I know he's been in a couple benches, but.
Yeah, since 2014, and we'll get into that because there's something I want to go over that in a nutshell of his career, but let's
so hear what you who's meant. The guy then? Who's the guy? It's not going to be Chili Davis. It's not going to be Clint Hurdle. Is it Eric Young Jr.? Is it Torrey Hunter?
I would say the wild card would be Eric Young Jr. If they see something in him, if he is a part of the staff, I would say Torrey Hunter's your best bet. But Benji Gill, if he's retained, I would have to say he would be the guy. You would see him become the bench coach over Hurdle. And have him just learn on the job.
I want to know who the pitching coach would be. I mean, because those names that are on there. Once again, those are just speculation. I've seen a lot of tweets. We've got messages. Not responding to anything like that until it's set in stone, official. Mm-hmm. It could be by the time this podcast is out, maybe it's already obsolete because it's already been announced. Pitching coach, I think that's still up in the air. But I do want to know who the pitching coach might be. I mean, that's a pretty high bar if you are able to get Torrey Hunter, Clint Hurdle, Eric Young Jr. You're going to put some pressure on a potential pitching coach. It's going to suck if you get a guy who's a Matt Wise-esque guy.
Yeah, you can't get the Mike Butchers of the world anymore. You got to get guys who have a bit of a repertoire, sort of like a Mark Pryor with the Dodgers.
I'm trying to think like who's a pitcher who had a lot of potential, was maybe always hurt and just couldn't put it together. That's what Mark Pryor was. Mark Pryor could have been one of the best pitchers of our generation. Well, my generation.
Yeah.
Like growing up really young, your daughter's generation. If he would have stayed healthy, that was his problem. When he was healthy, he was great, but he never was. I'm trying to think who's the Angels version of that. Who's our Mark Pryor?
It's hard to say, dude. We've had a lot of pitchers come through.
Yeah, I mean, the guy who I'm thinking, but I mean, he had a successful career, would be a guy like a John Lackey. I just don't think John Lackey would want to coach, but I could see a guy like that, been there, has been in the big spot, knows what it takes to get it done, to get to the pinnacle, the mountaintop of baseball. But I just feel like that kind of work would be like beneath him, like knowing like his kind of personality.
Percival's done it to an extent, not at the
Yes.
level, but I would say it would take a guy like Percival, someone
Okay.
like that, someone that has instant respect, especially working.
How about a guy like a Houston Street,
Yeah, yeah.
successful closer in his career?
Bounced around with a lot of teams, but he won wherever he went. So
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of like maybe guys who Ron Washington has a relationship with. But then again, I mean, I wouldn't have thought he had a relationship with like Torrey Hunter or like Eric Young Jr. So
yeah, yeah. Well, whatever it is, we'll see moving forward. I just want to go over something here before we
sure.
get into anything else with Ron Washington. Now, he debuted with the Texas Rangers in 2007 to a 75-87 record. They finished fourth that year. He was 55 years old at the time. He had players such as, let's see, he had Kenny Lofton on that team.
Okay.
He had, let's see, his starting lineup was Gerald Laird, Mark Teixeira, Ian Kinsler, Michael Young, Ramon Vasquez, Frank Calamento, Kenny Lofton, Nelson Cruz, and Sammy Sosa. That was
There's some pretty good names in there.
yeah, those pretty good names. Starting pitchers though, he had, let's see, he had Kevin Millwood, Cameron Lowe, Vicente Padilla, Brandon McCarthy, and Rob Tejeda. Those guys aren't that good. So
I think the third guy is the only one who said who kind of rung maybe a single bell.
yeah, none of those guys pitched to an ERA under 5.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, so there you go right there. That was the problem with that particular team. He even had Eric Gagne as the closer that year.
Yeah, Eric Gagne wasn't very good in 2007. He was great as a Dodger. I mean, I'll give him that.
Correct. And so then after that, though, from 2008 to 2013, Ron Washington's Rangers never finished below second place. They were 79-83, finished second in 2008. In 2009, they were 87-75. 90-72 in 2010, and the 2 years in the World Series they were 96-66, 93-69, 91-72. Now in 2010 he was busted for testing, or 2009 sorry, was busted for testing positive for cocaine, which he did admit to being in use of as a player back in the day. So he had a bit of a what's it called, a relapse. But the Rangers kept their faith in him, and he restored their faith in him by getting them to the World Series twice. He would be 91-72 in 2013. Then 2014, he did not finish the year. They finished 53-87. They had a train wreck of a season, lost all their players. The turmoil with him was that year infidelity with his wife. So it was a personal matter. He resigned before the end of the season.
Well, for starters, I'll say the good news is we don't have Matt Harvey anymore. And then I'll also say that, he seemingly did a very, very good job with Texas. Like you said, they had more successful seasons in terms of record than they didn't during his time there. As you stated, there was many years where they didn't have good starting pitching. Yet, second place finishes. I mean, they had he knows how to handle young up and comers, right? Michael Young was up and coming for Texas at the time. That was their Zach Neto. He was there for a long time, had a very successful career with the Rangers. Not Hall of Fame, but definitely a Hall of Very Good kind of career for the Rangers. Sammy Sosa was on the tail end of his career. That was post cork bat. That was post, steroids. God, who are some of the other guys that you said?
Well, here what they have is towards the end he had Prince Fielder that last season. He had a bunch of guys on their last legs. The year that they went to the World Series, one of the years they had Yorvit Torrealba as catcher, Mitch Moreland, Ian Kinsler, Elvis Andrews, Adrian Beltre, Josh Hamilton, Andy Chavez, Nelson Cruz, and Michael Young, plus Napoli on the bench. Pitching
See,
wise, pitching wise, they had C.J. Wilson, Colby Lewis, Derek Holland, Matt Harrison, and Alexi Ogando. That's the team they go into the World Series with.
kind of crazy to think, because you hear that roster, you think to yourself, how the hell did they not win the World Series? Because that's a very, very good roster.
Correct.
The good thing with that roster, it's not top heavy. Like, you think about the Angels roster for the last couple of years, and it's been very top heavy with Ohtani, Trout, Rendon, and then there's about 50 pounds of crap. And then there's, Luis Rengifo,
Yeah.
Mario Petit. You had Shane Robinson. These guys that have graced our presence as Angels fans.
Yeah.
Nova, what was it? Ian Nova, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. He was a left fielder.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the point is, those Rangers teams were very balanced, but there is a little bit of similarities there, right? I mean, your Josh Hamilton was probably your best player at that time, right? He was at the peak of his career.
Mm-hmm.
That was, the Rangers version of our Mike Trout right now. We don't know if we're going to get Ohtani back, but, Mike Napoli as a DH was very good for Texas. Ian Kinsler, very serviceable infielder. Adrian Beltre, one of the best third basemen of all time, future Hall of Famer. You know what I mean? So a lot of guys who have potential, who are big names, who are serviceable names, and you had a lot of those young and up-and-comers. He got to deal with Michael Young when he was up-and-coming. So maybe that's the kind of guy you could develop out of a guy like Zach Neto, who has a lot of potential. And the other thing to keep in mind, he was with Washington at the time that Anthony Rendon was there. Maybe all of a sudden Anthony Rendon is going to be motivated because, hey, I like that guy.
Correct.
At this point, it's worth a shot. I saw this meme where it was like Stone Cold Steve Austin when he was pretending to have a broken leg and he took the blanket off when he was on the wheelchair.
Yeah.
And his leg wasn't actually broken. And it's like Rendon when he sees that Ron Washington's with the Angels now.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, can Ron get away from Artie? Can Artie keep his hands off of him? Can Ron let him run his staff, bring in his own guys? None of these guys are Perry's guys. These are Ron's guys. Can Ron get all the information from the analytics department and him say, hey, you know what? I don't like this, but I'm going to go with my gut in this one. You know what I mean? Like, is he going to have this team running more? Is he going to change the philosophy? Is he going to have his own philosophy? And then my biggest thing here is I want to know, with the training staff not being signed yet or established for the 2024 season and beyond, is Ron going to be able to pick his own staff to help take care of his players? Is this finally an opportunity that Joe Madden didn't get, that only Sosha has gotten in the past, of picking his own entire staff, entire everything? Do you think Ron gets that choice?
I mean, I'm going to say I hope so, but realistically, it's Artie Moreno, so I'm going to go with no. Here's the thing, and here's where I am on it. Until the front office lets the people they hired do their thing, it doesn't matter who's the manager, who's the hitting coach, who's the pitching coach, because at the end of the day, if the front office is dictating everything, it doesn't matter if you or I is the manager, because we're being told what to do. So for Ron's sake, because he's a guy who is so established, who's been there. I mean, he has overseen some great teams. Keep in mind, this guy was working for Billy Beane during the Moneyball era, coaching the Oakland A's.
It's true.
He was with Washington. He had some very deep playoff runs with the Rangers. So this guy has been to the mountaintop with several organizations. I mean, he's never won the big game as a manager, but he's gotten to the dance. And Bruce Bochy and the Rangers are proof this year that all you have to do is make him the dance, and you never know what happens. No matter which way you slice it or dice it, the Rangers should not have won the World Series. Literally, if you're looking at a piece of paper, looking at that roster, yeah, of course there's some great pieces. You got the greatest player of all time, Corey Seager. You know, you have Will Smith, who's won 3 straight World Series. You have Marcus Semien, you know, Scherzer, DeGrom, some big names on there. But when you start to look at the injuries that plagued that team, I mean, even Garcia wasn't really available during the World Series. You look at these guys, and it's baffling that they won the World Series. But at the end of the day, look, we've already said 100 times, and I'm hoping I can stop saying soon, it's an organization who hired the right guy, hired the right staff, and trusted the manager and his staff to do the right thing. It's possible to use analytics to your advantage, but you have to trust the guys you hire. Now, let me ask you this. Was this a Perry hiring, or was this an Artie hiring?
I think this was a Perry hiring if you had to hold a gun to my head and make a decision, because I just don't buy the fact that Artie has been putting all his eggs in that Showalter basket, and he's not shy, dude. He reveals himself. That's why Epler and him were so good, because they both like to show their hands. If they were poker people, they'd have their cards in front of you. That's how he is. Artie was just like Showalter, Showalter, Showalter. You didn't hear Perry said, "Hey, we're hiring." You know, nothing was coming out like Perry's looking at Showalter. They're just like, "Hey, well, Showalter's high on the list because Artie likes him." And they were kind of poo-pooing Erstad and DeSarcina. So, long story short, I think this one was purely a Perry move.
Yeah, I really don't know what side of the fence it was on. I mean, I guess if I'm on the same boat, if I had to pick, it's probably a Perry move too. You know, I don't. It doesn't shriek Artie to me.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, like I just said, like 3 minutes ago, it doesn't matter who's hired if the front office isn't going to let Ron Washington do his job. I'm hoping it works out. James Gonzalez has been wanting this for years. He's been advocating for what, since we started this podcast, that they should hire Ron Washington. They finally did.
Yeah, they sure did. So that's why I'm happy they did this. I'm excited, but again, now we need to move on now. Well, he's going to pick his staff. We're going to have a new training staff probably pretty soon here. And then it's going to come down to free agents. Who are we going to bring in? What direction does this team take under Ron Washington? Are we going to reload? Are we going to go by the basics? Are we going to let Ron build this thing? But 2 years is not enough for me. That's why I tend to think this is going to be a, like, hey, let me mentor somebody to take this team long term.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to go one or two ways. It's going to go like how Dominic from Catella Chronicles, make sure to check our friends over at Catella Chronicles.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to go the way he said, and the Angels are going to go all in for these 2 years. Maybe they're going to give Ohtani a 5-year contract, opt out after the second year. Maybe they're going to retool that way. Maybe not. Maybe they think it's going to be a rebuild. Maybe it's a quick rebuild, and Ron Washington's here to stop the bleeding for 2 years, to build a new culture, to get the boys set up. So after he's 73, maybe retires or goes off into the distance, and the Angels hire their new guy, maybe their next Mike Scioscia, if you will, who's going to be here for a long time. Maybe that's when they're getting started, right? I mean, hey, we kind of did a mini rebuild. We now have a new second baseman. We have 2 new starting pitchers. And all of a sudden we're good now. And now we have a new manager. Maybe that's the plan. But either way, I think that this 2 years is going to either be the start of an era of a rebuild or the end of an era in terms of retooling if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, that's only time will tell. I mean, they're literally not giving us an opportunity or not a direction. Like, because I mean, obviously they're not going to come out and tell you exactly what they're going to do.
Billy Epler would.
Yeah, exactly. But as far as player personnel, but I mean, like I would have loved for them to be like, hey, you know what? We got a dog in this fight. Don't count us out. I know the last couple world champions have come from the AL West. We want to contend with them. Blah 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 blah. Yeah. Give me a spiel of some sort. Give me that, or give me, hey, I know that we got the last 2 world champions in our division. We're trying to get to their level in a few years. Be patient. Dude, either one. I just don't want this. Let's just throw shit against the wall and see if it sticks.
Yeah, the Angels the last couple of years have just been like, just trying to get through. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that meme from South Park, where the dad's like, I didn't hear no bell, and he's all beat up. That's just like what the Angels have been. You know what I mean? Like, it's in the middle of July. It's like, oh, don't worry, we got freaking David DeJesus. I didn't hear no bell. The team's beat up. They're like 12 games under 500. There's no hope. And Artie's like, no problem, guys. We're just gonna retool this offseason. You know what I mean? That's like what the fans are feeling like. It's like there's been nothing positive. I can see this move being beneficial either way. Whether this is the start of a rebuild, he's only here for 2 years because it's a mini rebuild, and this is going to be the guy to kind of get us through these dark 2 years. Okay, I can see that. Great. Ron Washington wanted the job. Here's a job. You're old as hell anyway. Here you go, you geezer. Here's the team. And if not, if it's a hey, we're retooling, we're going all in, we're going to try again. We're re-signing Shohei. We're running it back. Maybe this is what motivates Rendon. Maybe this is what teaches some of the young guys, because Ron Washington has worked with some very big names in his, decades in Major League Baseball, probably almost 30 years in Major League Baseball.
Oh, yeah.
So, he's a trusted guy. Let the guy do his job.
Yeah, they need someone to settle this team, and I think Ron Washington, when it comes to that, is the perfect guy for it. Everyone loved him in Atlanta. They knew he was a manager again in waiting. He served his time. He got himself back into baseball. I mean, America's about second chances. He's had a second chance. I'm not going to count the one with his wife. That's between him and his wife. That had nothing to do with baseball. But he served his time. He's been a great skipper and a great coach along the way, and I'm happy that he's gotten another chance with us. I'm very intrigued to see what he can bring to the table. And again, I think when all said and done was said and done, and hindsight being what it is with Nevin, I believe he was castrated a bit this year because but I just don't see them doing that to Ron. I don't think Ron took this job because these guys aren't stupid. They do their homework. And I'm pretty sure that he had to have come in there and said, hey, you know what, dude, I'm not going to put up with what Nevin did. I've got to be my own guy. And I hope Ron has that authority.
I don't know. I mean, part of me feels like it's going to be a Joe Madden situation all over again, but I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I mean, I'm tired of going through this dog and pony show all the time. Angels fans are.
Oh, yeah.
We're tired of this vicious cycle. It never ends. And I mean, it's also kind of aggravating that it's only a 2-year deal. I mean, I get it. He's 71 years old. He's old. So with that being said, I understand you're not going to give him a 5-year deal. And the last thing you want, I don't understand why they give managers, these long-term deals. I mean, I know it's a different sport, but I mean, look at the Raiders, right? They give John Gruden a 10-year contract. They give Josh McDaniels, a 5-year contract.
6.
Why are you giving any coach in any sport longer than I think 3 years is like the max. 3 years is like if you have like a Bill Belichick-esque kind of, head coach, manager, whatever that respective sport is, that's like, hey, you're cream of the crop. You're not going to get much better than Bill Belichick in football, right? I mean, he's one of the best head coaches. Pete Carroll, another guy, you're not going to get too much better than Pete Carroll. Where's the upgrade? We didn't know it at the time, and we thought, hey, it's time for Mike Scioscia to walk away. But at the time, I mean, Mike Scioscia is one of the best in the business, right? So you get these top tier managers and head coaches in these respective sports. Those are the guys you give those 3 years to. Everyone else shouldn't be more than a year or two. So, I don't know, man. I'm sure we'll be talking about this for the next 2 years. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be like that. I tend to agree. I think 3 to 4 years is max because the first year is always a mulligan. If they're able to do something that first,
the first 2 years, really.
Yeah, the first year you're really happy if they can make any kind of improvement. Second year you look for that improvement and guys to be getting into line to an upside for year 3. And if year 3 is good, then you could possibly start to talk about extensions if the manager gets you into the postseason, stuff like that. Yes. So with this 2-year deal, yeah, it's a little eye-opening, a little eyebrow-raising. But like you said, we're going to have plenty of time to talk about this. There's a bunch of more hirings to come. We'll have stuff, like you said, could break tomorrow morning. So we'll see what's up. You got anything else on Ron?
I'm trying to see what Bruce Bochy got in terms of a contract when he was hired. because that's probably like the person most similar to Ron Washington, right? They're old. Ron Washington didn't come out of retirement, but I mean, after being a bench coach for what, like 5 years,
5 years.
might as
Something.
well be retirement.
Well, speaking of that Raiders thing, since you brought it up, the
Uh,
Raiders are paying those two coaches combined $80 million not to coach.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. I heard that. I just got done before I got in the shower watching a video about McDaniels being the worst NFL coach, and they talked about that. But Bruce Bochy got a 3-year deal for the record, so it's funny they gave him a 3-year deal to retirement, but Ron Washington is only getting a 2-year. Once again, not out of retirement, but still. But let's be realistic. The chances of us winning a World Series his first year, the way Bruce Bochy did, pretty minimal. It's not going to happen. He was the exception. Bruce Bochy was the exception, not the rule. As great of a manager as he is, even that was a bit immaculate.
Absolutely. I mean, none of us would have put money on Texas even before their hot start.
I did. I have proof that I put money on the Rangers to win the World Series. I put it in the beginning of the playoffs and only put $1 on it. But as soon as the playoffs started, I put $1 on them. I put $1 on the Astros, and I put, I think, like $5 on Atlanta.
I'm talking about regular season, though, man. It's like,
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
if you would have put $1 on the Rangers to win the World Series,
yeah, you'd have a lot of dollars right now.
Yeah, when spring training was, I mean, you would have made a lot of money.
Exactly. They had huge odds right there. Last thing I'll say about it is, I think a World Series, if you were to compare to what Bochy did with the Rangers, I think our World Series would just be getting us to the postseason. If somehow, some way then you'd see the value in Ron and his staff if they were able to tweak this team just enough and give this team enough culture and enough push to get to the playoffs. I don't care if they get swept right away. I mean, to me, breaking that streak right away would be fantastic.
Yeah, they got to get the monkey off their back for sure. I mean, let's just put Trout in the playoffs, and that way we can start seeing those stupid articles. I'm so tired of them. I mean, we didn't see the articles in 2014. We didn't even see them in like 2015. It was like once 2016, 2017 started, that's when it really was like, oh, Trout got to go to the playoffs. He's wasting his career. Once again, I mean, you don't see the guys in the national media going after Aaron Judge. He hasn't won anything in New York. He's not coming close at all to winning anything in New York.
Yeah, and talk about getting gifted that MVP because he sure as hell didn't deserve it this year.
Yeah. Last year when he did win it, I mean, cool. He broke Roger Maris's record for most home runs in the American League or whatever. Cool.
Yeah, whatever.
In a single season. Fantastic. I've seen people hit home runs before. But when my apologies. When Ohtani wins in 2021, outdoes himself in 2022 and doesn't win, that's bonkers. We'll see if he wins this year. I know he's favored to win this year. Chances are he's going to win this year, especially because MLB knows it's going to be good marketing, right? Like, oh, the 2-time MVP's a free agent.
Oh, yeah.
And Ohtani's not going to sign anywhere until that MVP award because that's going to drive up the value, of course.
Correct.
He'd be an idiot to sign now.
Yeah. He's just going to continue with those New Balance commercials, and then we'll see what happens from there.
Yeah, the one of him like taking batting practice at Tempe Diablo with like a selfie stick.
Yep.
You can see the GoPro camera.
Yeah, that's the best they can come up with. Fantastic. So yeah, that's all I got, bro. Well, if anything else breaks, I'm sure we're going to cover it in some capacity. And we got more.
Stay tuned and follow us on our social media because the news is breaking all the time.
Correct.
We were pretty early to the Ron Washington party. I think we were like about 2 or 3 minutes past the official announcement.
That went up pretty quick. So for Todd Fox and the Lone Star Halo.
Good night, everybody, or have a good day wherever you are.
There you go.